I can't find it anymore. Killed for a minute. It's under my max on. Here? Yeah, it's on there. It's like here somewhere. Does your taskbar go away? No. Let's see if I can scroll it down. There it is. All right. All right.
Check one, check one. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Woodcreek City Council to order, January 12th, 6:30. Please rise. Silence. Thank you. The pledge of allegiance, remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Mayor Jeff Raskin.
Correct.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun. Here. Councilmember Judy Brizendine. Here. Councilmember Chris Brummer.
Here.
Councilmember Deborah Hines. Here. Councilmember Brent Foley.
Here. And we have a quorum. Thank you all. And I'd like to take a little personal privilege here to give just heartfelt thanks to Linda Land, our city secretary. That's not the last role she's going to call. She'll be doing that a couple more times tonight. Just tonight, just tonight. But Linda, I mean, there's just no words that any of us could come up with to thank you enough. You've been such a, as I mentioned before, such a bright light at City Hall, and you're going to be tough to replace. But we did chip in a little bit, and we know you like a plant or two, so maybe that will help that.
Go play in the yard.
Help that endeavor a little bit more.
Thanks.
There's nobody better thinking on it. Our public comments, we have 3 that have signed up to speak tonight, and then we have some written comments to be read in. We'll start with the in-person public comments. If you would step to the lectern and speak into the microphone, please, so everyone can hear you, and the recording will pick everything up. Jana White, 61 Brook Hollow.
Well, first of all, I'm up here to make comments, and
Ms. White, thank you.
I'm up here to make comments and ask questions through my unfiltered mouth. And what I'm going to be talking about, it has been created because of conversations with multiple voices close to the action and the stories that they're telling. And so I just want to kind of put it on the floor. I know I don't expect any reaction. If there is one, I'd like it written and delivered to me. But anyway, I'm kind of standing here in front of what everybody is calling a stacked council. I'm kind of surprised that the newly elected and the re-elected and the appointed are all sitting in each other's lap holding hands. But anyway, the downside is that everybody feels so negative about the future of Woodcreek and what this council has brought to the fore. Mr. Rasco, what I'm hearing is that you have no spine. You've lost your spine. You have become a yes man. And, you know, that needs to be remedied. You really do need to really grip and start doing your job. And Ms. Debbie, I understand.
Ms. White, were you speaking in the microphone because people at home cannot hear you unless you use it?
I understand that you have a somewhat propensity for mustaches, and I just wonder if you're going to make them de rigueur for the council. I've seen pictures on Facebook of you wearing a mustache. Is that something you get off to?
I'm sorry, Ms. White. If you would, it needs to stick with city business, please.
Well, city business is the stuff that comes out of this council with members like Mr. Mr. Pulley throwing fits, walking out of meetings, not showing up for meetings, being ill prepared for meetings. Is that not where our city government comes from? People that are acting like that? Can I not ask why that goes on? I understand he even turns his mic off so that he can't be maybe clearly recorded. And that's certainly not clear in transparent government. Golly, there's just, you know, the lawsuit. You can't say anything about that. But I'm just wondering how we can get some answers from behavior coming off of this city council. Now, I know I don't expect them tonight, but I'd like to put them out there for consideration. And I think Mr. Pulley's behavior is first and foremost in this little fit throwing that he does. That has to be interfere with business. So there's just a lot of people that I've talked to that are so concerned about what's going to come out of this council as it is constructed right now and how the votes were obtained to put y'all into office. Every night I say a prayer for the United States, first of all, and I now have added a little addendum to that to give some special recognition to Woodcreek, because I think we all need that. But anyway, I just wanted to bring up some issues that are floating around out there that so many people are talking about, and nothing seems to get done about it. So I'm concerned about city government, but I'm more concerned about the people that are going to be implementing it and their behavior. So I just wanted to kind of put that out, and hopefully, Mr. Grummer, chicken man, that won't be an issue in the future as it has been in the past. So I guess that would be city business, trying to get chickens in the yard. So, wanted to let you know that dog probably will hunt. So, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
No, ma'am, that's not allowed in
I
public
know,
comment.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, everybody. Y'all have a real nice evening now, you hear?
Gail Jones, 17 Brookside.
Mayor, City Council, City staff, welcome to a new world. We need to go forward with the plans that you're so eager to implement, that are great plans, well documented and well established. Thank you. And look at us. We're here at 6:30 at night. We've got more people out there than I've seen at a meeting in a long time. I hope that the word spreads. I hope that we have a full house every meeting and people participate and understand where we're going. And I would like to encourage people to be kind and considerate of each other. We need to set an example for the rest of the city, for the county. Ed and I got involved in the last election because we looked at each other and said, well, we can grumble, we can fuss, we can question, or we can go out and we can talk, and we can talk in a civilized manner to all views that will come forward to us. Hopefully, and with prayer, that can get further to you, to the audience, and to everybody in Woodcreek. We can all oppose each other. We can all have different views. And if we talk about it in a civilized, caring manner, we can solve a lot of problems. We may even get the road fixed.
Thank you very much. Right on Tilly, Augusta Drive.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Now, this is a good time, even if I'm going to cry. I'm going to learn how to say that eventually. Makes it difficult. I want to thank you, first of all, for the appointment to Planning and Zoning. I take the word advisory to heart and pledge to be supportive of Chair Katarba, fellow commission members, with independence and clear communications. I know any decisions are yours to make. These are my personal comments tonight. I am generally supportive of the meeting's agenda, but I especially want to point out that exploring specific protection for our cities, defining right-of-way, green spaces, and tree islands. Street trees and open spaces are infrastructure, every bit as much as roads and bridges. We should preserve and add to our nature-based infrastructure with the commitment equal to the need for transportation and utilities. That item I like. The next one I do not. I wish it were not so that you must contemplate the city secretary position. Linda Land is one of a kind. I was grateful for her patience, knowledgeable help, when on council, and even more so as a citizen afterward. I consider you a great friend, Linda. Of all of this, I hope this gives you plenty of time now to make great strides and do great things and have a lot of fun as a master naturalist. And finally, council, I am reminded that this is your third true meeting. It's early. You're toddlers. It's the awkward phase. It brings back how hard it was for me to leave and to see others doing things differently. It still is. But I appreciate the order of things. You are the ones in office. Your vote is your voice. In agreement or in opposition, my job is to be frank and support your best efforts, then render my one vote in November. Your pace is your pace and your schedule. If you keep up communications, you keep us on board. Change is hard. Yet change comes whether we welcome or fight it. Let's embrace change courageously.
Thank you. There were a few items that were submitted as written public comments. They did make the deadline for entry, and I will read them at this time. Public comment items 5 through 12 on the consent agenda, 300 words or less. We object to items 5 through 12 on the consent agenda. It is inappropriate and probably illegal to pass these items without public discussion. As citizens, we have requested and in writing directed the city manager, items 5 through 12 be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. And we will do that. Public comment, all items, city business, 300 words or less. We object to new procedures for meetings and the new methods of setting agendas. Resolution 2021-12-22-1 is in direct conflict with the existing law relevant to our city form of government, wherein it is the executive exclusive responsibility of the mayor to make the agenda with staff. We object to the mayor's abdication of the role as CEO of the city. Council members have been given unlawful authorities in administration of City Hall. Council members are freely interacting in discussions outside the guidance of city staff. A new agenda sharing program has been developed and utilized for current and future individual council member planning. This Google program has been utilized outside City Hall without staff input. Multiple council members dictating the agenda preparation have failed in drafting and supporting agenda items and meeting timelines while circumventing manager and staff. The language and actions in the meeting notices have been untimely and do not comply with the resolution designed to guide this process. This unorthodox, legally questionable process is an administrative fiasco. Exclamation point. Respectfully, Woodcreek Mayor's view. Mayor Gloria Whitehead, Pebblebrook Lane, Mayor Eric Estlund, Augusta Drive, Mayor Bill Shield, Cypress Point. Public item, agenda item 13, Pulley lawsuit. We object to possible city action to dismiss the lawsuit. It has cost the taxpayers over $50,000 to defend lawful actions. The city should direct council to set a hearing on the motion for summary judgment and the counterclaim for damages which have been filed. We believe the plaintiff received concessions as his demands were met for the new legally questionable resolution of meeting procedures giving council members control of the agendas. An action to dismiss the lawsuit will deny a settlement on the merits by the court and will be a disservice to the citizens. The underlying issues will not be resolved until there is a legal ruling in the matter. Public comment agenda item 18, zoning overlay. We object to this classification. The purposes stated are self-serving and predicted on false assertions that Brook Meadow Drive is a special neighborhood deserving preferential treatment. The proposal limits personal property rights, risks legal challenges such as ex post facto law, opening the city to legal action by owners who already have approvals under existing law. It is false that there is a threat of urbanization and that estate homes deserve special protections. Respectfully, Mayor Gloria Whitehead, Pebblebrook Lane, Mayor Eric Estlund, Augusta Drive, Mayor Bill Shield, and Cypress Point. I would like to make a note, based on the rules of the council. We are not to discuss these items on the agenda, except that the council may make a statement of fact regarding an item. And I just want to mention that these written proposals, I happily accept the views of the former mayors, but I think that there is misinformation and a little bit of fact that do need to be set forth. We are a chapter in the local government code. Chapter 22 does not define strong or strong mayor. It simply says, you know, what we are, and that's where we operate. The way that we are doing the agendas were in an effort to increase efficiency. They were run by the city attorney and the city manager. Staff, we worked extensively with them to make it work. Those forms come directly to me with copies only to the city manager, the city secretary, city administrator, and the mayor pro tem. And those are the only people that see those. Everything else is clearly within the regulations of the Texas Open Meetings Act. And I just wanted to make that clear as we move forward. Thank you. Moving on to item number 1, approval of the city council minutes from December 8th.
Excuse me, Mayor, you have one more written comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nancy, you're right. Thank you, Linda. Oh, yes. Thought it was good on that. These public comments from Nancy Brittner. Item 13, it would behoove the city to complete the last hearing on the lawsuit so that we as citizens can have a resolution by the court. Anything else would be whitewashing. Item 15, fire hydrants have been addressed on a number of occasions in the past. The findings were discussed in the past. If you want current info, you should contact Aqua Texas. Item 18, why would you want to restrict property rights? Item 19, redundant. All you need to know is on the permit forms. Item 22, the logical way to fund roads has been researched and found to be extend the tax note. Why do you need to reinvent the wheel? You have perfectly sound background information on all aspects of roads. Don't forget the engineering costs. And item number 23, a roads bond would require an item on a ballot and would not be cost effective. Extending the tax note is something the council can do. And that's from Nancy. Thank you. Thank you. So now moving on to agenda item number 1.
Our mayor, can I point out that items 1 through 4 are on the consent agenda?
I'm a little, I'll be. Yeah, so now items 1 through 4 are on the consent agenda. 5 through 12 have been removed and will be taken as they come on the agenda. So I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Councilmember Ford.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hines. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun.
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine.
I'll abstain, please.
Councilmember Drummer.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines. Aye. Councilmember Pulley.
Aye. Consent agenda passes. Item number 5, instruct Planning and Zoning Commission to review, adjust, and or create clear guidelines regarding planned unit development district, planned development district, conditional use permit, and mixed use districts with a focus towards conservation, the ETJ if applicable, and the possible benefits for our citizenry, and present to council their recommendations. Councilmember Bremer.
I move as written.
I second.
Councilmember Bremer moved. Councilmember Hines, second. You want to speak to the motion? No? Okay.
I have a question. On item number 5, and this is, I'm looking at it, and one of the things that we had talked about in the past with ordinance reviews was chapter 15, land usage, doing a thorough review. So my question is, I don't have an objection to what you're suggesting here, but should we do this as part of the ordinance review? Or explain to me a little bit the difference.
So that's actually a good idea, but what I was considering was, since this is planning and zoning, and that part of these that are written out don't actually exist yet, I thought planning and zoning would be a great place to start the process. So maybe they can kind of generate the beginning of it, and then we could move it to ordinance review. So I was just trying to take first steps.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hines.
I provided a couple of statements on all of these 5 through 12, just because it seemed like the public wanted to hear more about them. So I'm just going to say what my reasoning in seconding Mr. Romert's motion was. First off, I was excited and surprised to see this on the agenda. This is relevant and timely. We already have an undeveloped PED out there. New development is springing up all along Winters Mill. We have the slow creep of dripping springs down Ranch Road 12. Water conservation and the responsibility of the city to ensure access to clean drinking water is essential. There are currently or recently lots for sale in the ETJ. I'm not really sure on the status of those on Tully Court. I think it is a smart plan to seek the type of development that we want, or at least set some guardrails and bumpers in place to guide or prevent what we don't want. And I'm interested in having the P&Z investigate this further, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Further discussion? Call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Thank you very much. Votes unanimous. Item number 6, instruct city staff to remove cubicle dividers and reconfigure city chambers to original design. Member Pulley?
Do we need a motion first?
Yes, we do. Because everything's been taken off the consent agenda. So we need to go through the process.
I'd move, I guess, first of all, that we instruct the city staff to remove the cubicle dividers and reconfigure that meeting space.
Do we have a motion?
That's
I
one
second.
Councilmember Hines?
any discussion. The reason being is that that's our community meeting space at City Hall. And during the, I guess the COVID epidemic, it's been divided in half, part for an office and in part for folks to meet in. And it's dangerous when we do meet up there to have to squeeze into basically half the meeting space. I would like that meeting space to be reconstituted as meeting space as it was intended. So the community can meet up there. The council probably won't be able to meet up there for a while because of the COVID seems to keep going, but some of the smaller committees should be able to meet up there, and they shouldn't have to cram into half the space. So I'd like to get that back to the way it was before.
I have a comment.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
does that mean that we're firing Joe?
No,
He will no longer have an office space.
he won't have a dedicated office, but we're firing him.
I think I do a lot of work on my laptop. I can work here at home. I can work in my car if I have to. So if he has paperwork, I think there's places he can go, but we can't dedicate half City Hall to that anymore.
I was just gonna add that I didn't put this on the agenda, but I had just kind of emailed you and asked you about it outside of, and I'm willing to help with the effort and help design a space where Joe could potentially still have a flexible workspace in there, but it is preserved as a meeting, and I'm willing to volunteer my time for that.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's,
I understand the reasoning and having City Hall. My concern with City Hall is the capacity is 15. And, I was just counting who we have in the audience today. We probably squeeze them all there. So my concern is having a space, has been, it's not new, has been for a long time since I've been on council, that when we've had issues that were pressing issues for the citizens, we sometimes had to turn them away because the fire marshal would not let us have them in.
Yeah.
So that's one concern with that space, but
As Councilmember Pulley said, you know, our council members, our council meetings probably are not going to be there for
okay,
what,
so let me say for routine meetings, but,
that's the plan.
you know, one of the things, and maybe this is not, one of the things that I saw in the new 2022, one of the things too that I saw in the new 2022 manual from the Attorney General's office for open meetings, I know that they do not consider this type of meeting. We would have to have an audience because there's not participation from the people who are watching. But if you have a system, whatever the system may be, I don't want to use a proprietary name, where the citizens could participate, we could have a two-way communication, then we could supplement the space. And I would like, I know that's not exactly what Councilmember Pulley has on his item, but this is something that I would like to see us consider in the future. Some of our residents may.
I think it's a good idea, what Councilmember Hines is suggesting, that we make space for Joe until what time he is fired, that at least we're not getting the cart before the horse, that he has a place to work until.
Do you know something that we don't know?
Well, let me just say this, the whole purpose of the motion is to get the meeting space back. The last time I had a meeting with a couple of people, I think with Jeff and maybe Brenton, you know, again, we have to squeeze in this little space. It'd be nice if we could, if we had a small meeting, you know, use the entire meeting space. As far as Joe, I mean, like I say, I work all over the place with the laptop, and I don't need a dedicated office, hardly anyone does anymore. So I think that's workable, but if we need to figure something out, we can. But we don't need to dedicate half the city hall to that, or at least half the meeting hall to that.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to describe the space for those of you who haven't been up there. The room that was previous, our meeting room, has been divided completely in half by a divider that stands over my height. And behind the divider is a desk working area with, you know, a setup with a computer and a screen. And then there is tons of stuff just stored everywhere because we still have too many tables, too many chairs, all these items. And so the space is really unworkable as it stands. And I think a basic reorganizing and removing of the divider is essential at this point because, you know, even working on a comprehensive plan moving forward, we will need a space to meet. City Hall is that space. I don't want to sit elbow to elbow and work with people. I don't think that's safe for my fellow council members, and I think that we need to rework the space. Regardless of where Joe works, the way the space is now is not functional.
All right, I'd like to call a question. Right?
I want to be clear that the discussion was focused on reworking the space as opposed to restoring it to its original condition.
The removed items and refigure council chambers to original design.
Correct.
That's what we'll go.
Councilmember Brizendine,
No.
Councilmember Hines,
Yes.
Councilmember Brummer,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
I,
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Number 8 is instruct staff to consult with. Oh, I'm sorry. Check marks. Okay, too bad.
we should,
All right.
before we leave the item, are we taking her up on her offer? Councilmember Hines?
We'll talk.
Oh, I have a strong bet. I'll be there.
We'll talk. I'm sorry about that. Item number 7, request planning and zoning commission to determine the proper procedure to remove the language regarding the requirement of 55% masonry from the Woodcreek ordinances. to be in compliance with the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 3000, adopted September 1, 2019, that was submitted by Councilmember Burke.
I move as written.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Pulley.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, yes, sir.
I'm going to actually defer to the city manager. He brought this up back in the fall of 2019. Could you explain some of this for us?
Basically, state law changed where the city of Woodcreek had a 55% masonry requirement. And now, the state law changed that as long as the material is included in the UBC or International Building Code, that anything can be used to site it. The 55% masonry is, does not comply with state law. Staff has not been enforcing it. However, it is still remains in our code. At the time that it was discussed originally in 2019, it was to be taken out when we had something that would affect all of the city at one time because of the notification process we have to have with the zoning code.
That's a quick question. Most builders are using hardy plank now, I think, for siding. Is that like a masonry type product anyway? Okay.
But if you want to, you can side your house with corrugated metal.
Yeah.
Because that is in the building code.
Can we have that stricken from the record?
But what I'm saying is, as long as it's in the UBC.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilmember LeBron.
I did remember when I saw this item, that this was something that council discussed at the time that state law became mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
It is mandatory on cities, not on HOAs.
Right.
That's my understanding. And I thought we had handled that. So we are not requiring all this new construction. We're not requiring 55%.
No, we do not require 55%.
It is
masonry.
just a matter of not having a dated code.
That's right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because I remember council voted.
Mhm.
And there was there was one of the issues that was a concern was people who wanted to have accessory buildings, so there's a small workshop having to have that 55%.
Yes, because under the code before 2019,
That's what
you
I
did have to have that on your accessory building.
Yeah, it was not this legislature, the previous legislature.
Right, but in 2019, that's when they said, no, you cannot require it.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So just point of clarification there. So the wish would be that this would be part of a greater look at all of the zoning requirements, building, and as part of a sort of an omnibus program of zoning change. All right, no further discussion. Thank you. Call the roll, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Brummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Foley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Votes unanimous. Now, item number 8, instruct staff to consult with Attain accountants and advisors to develop a system billing expenses on the monthly check register to budget line items. So that's Councilmember Hines.
I move as written.
Thank you.
I second.
Second, Councilmember Brummer. Discuss.
So the reason why I recommended this is because a regular citizen, when looking at the check registers, can see how we're spending money, but it doesn't necessarily link those items to where they were allocated in the budget. And so in an effort to increase transparency and accountability, and also I just believe this is good financial behavior overall. I feel like if we add a code linking it to the line budget item, and it might already exist, so maybe they already do that. If they could just make that visible for our citizens in the record process, I think that would be helpful.
City Manager Lewis, can you, we talked about this. Did you sort of explain the process?
Yes, because when we started working toward the transparency through the state, one of the things was to include the check registers on your website. We will have to consult with our accountants because there will probably be an additional cost for them to actually show the actual line item that would be compared to those checks. There's some checks that we divide it out into multiple line items too. So that we'll have to figure out a way to address that, because I use the city attorney as an example, because he might be broken into 4 different line items. Our engineers might be broken into 4 different line items. So it might, so that's one thing we'll have to talk about, whether it just says multiple line items, or if it actually has to list each one of the line items or the budget line. But mainly, we just have to work with them, get it set up, pay the additional cost to get it set up, and after, it's just the cost of initiating it.
Okay, thank you.
That just seems like basic financial controls, to make sure that money's going where it's supposed to go. So I think it's worth it. It seems like it's a pretty normal business activity anyway. So keep track of how you're spending money and linking it up with actual budget items. So
Yeah, Mayor. The thing is that what we have in QuickBooks, it automatically does that, which is anybody wants to look at it can. They just have to do the public information request. But this is just one step further to provide that, so the citizen can link it back to the budget. The controls are already there. It's just now one more step for the citizens to be able to look at it.
Yeah, being a QuickBooks user for many, many years, if it's something that QuickBooks can do in just a report reconfiguration, it should be a pretty simple process. So it's going to be interesting to see what that's. Councilmember Bruce, there.
On QuickBooks, aren't we already using the same coding as we use on the budget
Yes,
on our checks?
yes, everything is the same. So basically,
So, and essentially, if the check is written and it goes to 6,600, it automatically, if someone looks at that check and the check register knows it goes to 6,600 on the budget.
on what is on the website just shows the vendor and the amount.
That's what.
So all we really need to do is to get those numbers on the website,
Yes,
Add one column.
which should be very simple.
it should.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Lance.
Do we have any idea what it might cost?
No, we were waiting for the action of the council.
Right, okay.
We had to approve it.
It won't be much
No, it won't be.
because the number system is already in place.
Perfect.
We're good? All right. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
I,
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Number 9, request the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board create a 2022 event schedule expanding beyond this spectacular event and luminaries for December 24th, and that the city consider how these events could generate funds for city parks in the future. Your motion, Councilmember Hines?
Move as written.
I second.
Second by Councilmember Crummer.
So again, I'm just gonna kind of read my logic for recommending this. I really loved the events this year, so did my family and my kids. I think they were great for bringing our community together and healing divisions. In a conversation with 2 of the Parks Board members after this spectacular event, they both expressed a desire to begin planning earlier for 2022 and to work on a budget for the event. In the last Parks Board meeting of 2021, they discussed how events like the Luminarias could be avenues for generating parks improvement funds in the future. I suggested this item to show support for the Parks and Recreation Board, to encourage them to continue with this excellent work and to get the ball rolling for 2022 planning, since the year is already here. It was June of last year when the parade for July 4th was discussed, and we didn't have enough time for it. Additionally, the previous council budgeted for events for this year, so that's already in place. And our 2030 vision plan actually discusses wanting more community events. I know you've spoken to that fact in the previous meeting. So for me, this was just sort of a nudge of, hey, it's January, let's get going, guys. So we don't, run out of time.
Okay, we have a second. Motion.
No, we had a second. Councilmember Berman, second. I think Judy had her hand up first.
well, I had a question about generating funds for the city parks. I feel like that puts an interesting spin on what we're doing. City parks should be paid for, in my mind, out of the budget from taxpayers. And I'm wondering why we're wanting to go after asking citizens to generate funds.
I believe the Parks Board suggested with the luminarias in particular that it could be a great way to raise an additional funds. Fundraising is a common practice for things like parks. I'm not really sure what the concern is. I know that taxpayers and allocating in our budget for parks already occurs to some degree, that we do have those items. And I think that further contributions, people are excited to get involved, and events bring people together and can kind of create like a snowball effect. So where, you know, I might contribute annually $10 a year to our parks, I can go to an event and participate in the event and give $100 directly.
And give it to whom?
The Parks
The
Board.
city, as we have already like accepted money from t-shirt sales, into the city coffers earmarked for.
So I'm asking about the mechanics of it, though. You're talking about having a fundraiser, and the money goes to whom? Is a city staff member going to be there to collect funds? A Parks Board member is going to collect it and then turn it over to the city? And what's to stop the cash from flowing in and out of city funds?
You know, one of the things I'd just like to bring up if I could, and Mr. Ron, you may want to step up and speak to this as well. One of my concerns is just putting more on an already really hardworking advisory group. I think one of the things that we should focus strongly on is building up their volunteer base throughout the city to help and to take on some of these things, so that the advisory board itself can work more strategically and work with volunteer committees to get, you know, most of the real work done. I think that's the best way to handle that. One of the committees, you know, could be, and this is, we're asking Parks and Recreation to look at this. We're not instructing, you know, they're supposed, okay, is there a way for us to do this and make it work? Well, one of their ideas may be, yeah, that's great. And like Friends of the Parks or something like that could be, you know, primarily responsible for fundraising. So that we're not, you know, sending Maureen out with a coffee can at spectacular. So I mean that you know, the details I think are what we're asking the board to look at, and then, you know, make recommendations that we can support. But I would like to strongly urge volunteerism, especially parks are one area where people can really pitch in and do stuff. We can plant and we can weed and we can, I mean, we've been doing a pretty good job of that. We do it more. So, in Linda's retirement, I'm putting no. So, I mean, I hope I would like stuff there. I don't know, Pat, if you want to add anything, but I just want to. Mr. Kelly.
I was just going to say, I think the council, I'm talking Pat specifically, everyone's really happy with how the luminaries turned out and how spectacular it turned out. And it's been a real credit to the community. So we all thank you for that. And so we look forward to seeing more, man. So thank you.
If I may,
Yes, ma'am.
I drove out of the city. I had my daughter in the car. We were going to dinner Christmas Eve, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was really, but I did notice this time, Mr. Rollins, when he was promoting on social media the luminarias and making sure that the citizens would collect them, those who wanted to do it, he did make a comment that this year they were going to be available free, but that next year there might be a request for funds to support the program. So he has already planted that seed.
Can I just speak real quickly to that?
Please.
The only reason that I suggested that it is based on a practice that was done in a town I used to live in near Houston called El Lago. And they funded a community newsletter with the proceeds from Luminarias. And that was kind of a big annual thing, and it funded the newsletter for the rest of the year. So just like that, it could be used for other parks type things. It wasn't like I had an overall strategy to start raising funds with everything we did. It was more specifically, I was just thinking Luminarias.
But I noticed in the reports for the last 2 months that we already, I noticed in the report for the last 2 months that we already have some donations. We have in the revenues, some donations for.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify, I don't think that all events should be organized around getting money from citizens. I just want to support parks in that effort, and my goal was to kind of hopefully counsel back me on basically saying we are open to this idea, because I know last year there was conversation around whether or not they should or could, and it kind of stalled efforts. And I think that if we start the year off right, we could do some big things.
Okay.
So could the motion be restated, please?
Yes, the motion is to request the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board create a 2022 event schedule expanding beyond the spectacular event and luminaries for December 24th, and that the city consider how these events could generate funds for city parks in the future.
So it's all for consideration.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. We can call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brisendine.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Brummer.
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. Item number 10, direct city attorney to prepare an ordinance designating the city of Woodcreek right-of-way green spaces and trees and roadway islands as city parks or protected areas, and regulate parking on and around the protected areas, directing funds for their care and maintenance. Your motion, Councilmember
I
Hines.
move as written.
I second.
Councilmember Bremer, seconds.
So again, I'm just going to talk about why I suggested this. First, I did see it was already outlined in the Parks Master Plan. A lot of these areas have already been identified. I just, want to expand that process and kind of check off that we've got them all. I would like to see these areas get this designation so we can preserve them, and also kind of be able to designate parking around them or prevent it, because I know in some of them it's not really safe for people to be parking there, but right now there is no prevention because it is a right of way. So by giving them this other designation, we could potentially control that more. I also want to honor and legitimize citizen efforts in these areas, because I know people have already been donating their time to groom them, make them look nice, mow them. And so by, these designations would kind of validate that effort. I also believe that by putting, it kind of goes with the next item, hopefully if we pass that as well, that we could increase our property values, beautify our space. And I think of the golf course in particular. If people are driving in from out of our city to go to our golf course, if they're driving past these beautiful green spaces, I mean, it's going to inspire them to come there more and spend more money at the golf course. And we talk a lot about neighbors maintaining their lawns. Well, these are our city lawns. So I want to create kind of protection for them. And the last thing is some of these areas are in need of care, significant care already. And I do happen to be partnered up with an arborist, the father of my children. And we've talked about the trees, and some of them, if you don't care for trees, they become liabilities. And some of these trees need care. And by doing this, we preserve the trees, but we also open an avenue for funding for the care of the trees.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about this. Directing funds for their care and maintenance, is there something already dedicated in the budget for that?
Yes, there is, in the beautification, there is money available for the, actually care for our green spaces. Parks, everything.
Can you tell me how much is there?
Sure, just a second.
Okay. I hate to see directing funds in an ordinance, because it's something that's done in a budget and setting funds specifically in an ordinance. And that's what you're asking for in this motion.
28, 30,000. 30,000 total.
So we have funds budgeted already.
So I think the goal is to prepare an ordinance to protect them. And by preparing that ordinance and designating these spaces as protected spaces or green spaces or parks for that matter, it allows us to use those funds. Because right now, it is my understanding, the only funds we could use would maybe be the street maintenance funds. And I would like those to go to actual street maintenance.
He says beautification is where it would come from.
But we could change our agreement with the person that does our maintenance of our other green area, our parks and stuff, and actually the triangle area, and just have that included on the mowing and the edging and things like that. But that would just be general maintenance, but there is $30,000 budgeted right now for that.
So it wouldn't be necessary to put directing funds in the ordinance.
No.
Because the funds are already there and can be used for such.
Correct.
So would you amend ask for a friendly?
I will second Judy's amendment.
I'm open to it. I just didn't realize that it would be needed in the way that it's worded because we're asking the city attorney to prepare an ordinance designating them. I guess it implies that you would also put something about directing funds.
Correct.
So would you need to just say where the funds would come out of? Like what budget item they would fall under then, or is it not necessary?
We don't have to.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll amend it.
No,
It's
her amendment, I seconded it.
Okay.
Did you catch the amendment, Madam Secretary? Seconded by Councilmember Brummer.
Thank you.
By Councilmember Hines. Any other discussion?
Well,
We'll vote on the amendment first.
Yes.
To strike the directing of funds. Do a call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun. Councilmember Brizendine.
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer.
aye.
And if the amendment passes, we will now vote on
Mayor, if I may, go back to the original motion.
Councilmember Brummer.
So I just wanted to predict, since you were possibly going to be writing this ordinance, what happens to, we have on Elmbrook in Brook Meadow, there's a place in the street where there once was a tree.
Yeah.
And it's just dirt space now. I mean, so I just want to like throw it out there, like, hey, maybe consider that when whoever decides these places, that might be consideration.
So in drafting this, if I drafted, my first request would be to Councilmember Hines to provide me a description of the areas so we can clearly identify where they are. And I would certainly imagine that if there's additional input on what those spaces should be, that would be asked for.
Great, but she does reference the previous.
Parks Master Plan has a lot of them highlighted. I can easily go and validate. And I would prefer to run it by council if we were going to designate anything new, but if Elmbrook is already on there, then.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was actually asking the question more about like, well, if there was a place that had a tree, what is the process? And you're saying, well, we kind of discussed it. Thank you.
The spaces are what you want them to be.
Okay, so I will get you, I mean, you have access to the master plan, but I can.
You might want to look at the master plan.
I'll look at it.
And before you give it over to the city attorney. All right, can we take a vote now? Thank you.
Councilmember Pulley. Councilmember Grummer.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun.
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Great, unanimous. Item number 11, request Parks and this one is related. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to develop annual plans of spring community volunteer events for cleanup and beautification of city green spaces. Your motion?
I move as stated.
I second.
Second by Councilmember Grummer. I would just like to, well, personal privilege to repeat what I said getting some volunteers. I think that they would probably take all the help that we can give in bringing volunteers through, city communications.
So in the item itself, if you peek into the actual agenda and the document where I kind of listed more information, I did mention, and I wanted to defer this to Parks first because I feel like it's their honor in many ways. But I did mention perhaps one or two council members could take on the organization or the advertising or, any aspect of it that's requested. And I'm happy to spend my time doing that. And I also believe that potentially we might get citizen volunteers who would be willing to head a project or assist in this. So I think there's a lot of possibility there. And essentially it's just kind of, I want Parks input on it. And my goal is essentially, again, spring is the perfect time for this. So this is kind of a timing matter for me, why I suggested it on this agenda. Because if we wait too long, we'll have to wait a year to get started, so.
Further discussion? Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Hine,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun, Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Brisendine,
I,
Thank you very much. And the final item from the previous consent agenda is instruct staff to seek applications for members of the newly established tree board, planning and zoning alternate commissioner, and parks and recreation advisory board member. That motion came from Councilmember Burmer.
I move as written.
I second.
Councilmember Hines seconds. Any discussion?
Other than, I believe that the city has already created some action on some of these.
We've already started the process, yes.
Thank you.
So it's a pretty routine matter to request volunteers. And I'd like to call vote.
Councilmember Brisendine,
I,
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hine,
Aye.
All right, we move to item number 13, which is to discuss and take appropriate action on cause 20-1401, Brent H. Pulley v. Gloria Whitehead in her official capacity as mayor and presiding officer for the city of Woodcreek City Council and the city of Woodcreek, Texas. Also like to include item 14, discussion and take appropriate action on agreement with Hayes County for services provided by Constable Precinct 3. And I'd like to go into executive session to discuss these items with our attorney. At this time, it's 7:31.
Which one do you want to take up first?
We'll take 13 first. And then come out.
Oh, that's not like that.
Hey, you can have
I don't like my job.
it. You can have it.
I think.
I'm gonna regret the comment I had. Yeah, in the morning, I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
Calling the meeting back to order. It's 8:17. Coming out of executive session, item number 13. Is there a motion on item 13?
I would like to issue a motion to dismiss the lawsuit with prejudice.
I would like to amend that to mutual.
Mutual prejudice. Accepted. I would like for me to issue a new one.
So
We haven't seconded it.
I would like to issue a motion to dismiss the lawsuit with mutual prejudice.
be a mutual motion to dismiss with prejudice.
Would it be fair to say that you would like to make a motion that the lawsuit be dismissed by filing a mutual motion to dismiss with prejudice?
What you said.
That's
That's my
not,
motion.
I second.
all right. So seconded by Councilmember Grimmer. Is there any discussion?
Did he second?
2 seconds. Councilmember Grimmer, second. Hearing no discussion, I'll have to call the vote, please.
The motion was to that the lawsuit be dismissed.
A mutual motion to dismiss with prejudice.
Please restate the motion.
I move that the city file a mutual motion to dismiss with prejudice.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
Nay.
Councilmember Grimmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Abstain?
All right, the motion passes. So do you need instruction, city secretary, city attorney?
No, I don't need instructions.
Okay. Item number 14 was to discuss and take appropriate action on agreement with Hayes County for services provided by Constable Precinct 3, and we'll be taking no action on that this evening. Item number 15, discuss and take appropriate action on compiling the locations and conditions of fire hydrants in the city of Woodcreek. That was your motion, Councilmember
I
Grimmer.
move as written.
I second.
Second, Councilmember Hines.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
The reason I put this here was that I understand that we might not call them fire hydrants, but they're these black things that sometimes are hooked up to during fire events. And I just wanted to have the city have possibly a chart of that on their website provided to the citizens. Go ahead.
Mayor, go.
Oh,
No, I'm gonna ask you a question. Would you please jump in
Okay,
and
so basically,
explain it?
There's history here.
if the Aqua system is actually a flush valve system. That means that they might only be pumping 250 gallons per minute, and this is in the report from CMAQ from last year. The city is not privy to anything, any of the information of what the gallonage is or the pump or the pressure in it at any of those fire hydrants, because that is a private water system. We can designate where the fire hydrant or the flush valve system is, but we cannot say what its operation condition is.
Okay.
There is a agreement between the fire department and Aqua Texas that basically they say there will be a fire hydrant there. They cannot guarantee it will produce the water to use it on a pump. And so that way, the agreement, the MOU they have is that the fire department understands they might have to bring in a tanker to supply the water to the public.
Thank you. That was the main reason for this particular item, was to have this discussion so that the citizens know what the situation is regarding fire.
I have a question, is that, I know that on some plats, location of valves or hydrants, or our plat, our city plat, or none of our existing mapping shows existing, or positions of existing flush valves?
No.
Okay.
No, because it is not our system.
Right.
And we don't show where valves are, anything.
So it wasn't part of the development plans or anything?
And basically, because it is a private system, it's their system.
Okay, thank you.
If I may,
Yes.
and we do not have a copy of the agreement between the fire department and Aqua Texas.
We get one, because we get one from the fire department, but not from Aqua Texas.
So what does that tell us about the locations of the fire?
Basically, and I'm going to read from what the CMAQ group found, is that the functional water hydrants located throughout the city support both line flushing and firefighting should provide at least a minimum flow of 250 gallons per minute. Most hydrants will fall in the range of 800 to 1,000, but the hydrants are tested and flushed every year by Aqua Texas. They're painted black because they do not technically meet all the requirements of a fire flow system, and such as 1,000 gallons per minute for 2 hours. So if this was maintained, that they could drain the whole system within 2 hours. And a memorandum of understanding between Aqua Texas and the Wimberley Fire and Rescue states that Wimberley Fire Department will accept whatever pressure and flow exists at the hydrant, and that this is a common legal arrangement between Texas private water systems and volunteer fire departments. So.
Well,
Mr. Drummer?
I would like to actually then, well, I'm going to ask a couple more questions, I'm sorry. What information do you think we could provide to the citizens in regards to this?
Basically what's in the report. That's what we received from the fire department.
I'm going to offer an amendment to my motion. And could you state the document?
It's the CMAQ report from after that was filed, after the freeze that we had in February.
I would move to, do we already have, I'm sorry.
It's done.
It's already on the website?
It's online. Okay.
Well, can I?
Yes. you can.
Just go ahead.
So I thought this was a really great idea. I've had a couple of different citizens talk to me about this on separate occasions, specifically because insurance companies require this information frequently. So I was wondering if there could be some, there's this communication that's available online, but if we could make it where it's very clear that just take that portion about the fire hydrants and have like a fire hydrant bulletin board or FAQ, but specifically, I don't see why we can't have their locations. Like, could we generate that map?
And if you drive down the street, if you see the blue Camelback in the middle of the road, that's where the fire hydrant is.
Okay, and then sometimes it's an actual hydrant. Or
Yeah.
Well,
black.
it's a flush valve it is a hydrant that has been painted black because they cannot guarantee the 1,000 gallons per minute.
Okay, so sometimes there's the black flush valve.
Well, you have the blue Camelback, which is in the roadway.
Reflective.
The reflective that shows, and that, where that blue marker is, that fire hydrant is on the side of the road at that point.
Okay.
And then
So
they're
we
all
could
painted
do
black. And one of them has a stocking cap on it, or used to.
I have, but several years ago, there was an inspection of all the fire hydrants, and they were painted different colors depending on the condition. So somebody knows, so you have a green, a red, a yellow, so somebody knows where they are because they went around and painted them. So is that the fire department?
No, that Aqua Texas is the one that has to test the system because it is their system. And then and that's why now they paint them black, is because they cannot guarantee the 1,000 gallons per minute.
Is there a reason why we cannot ask Aqua Texas to give us those locations?
Basically Homeland Security. We are not privy to the information as to what each one of those hydrants could
We're
produce.
not asking them for.
Just the location.
Well, we know the location. We can drive the streets and put a location down.
I think, why not, before we go up,
Yeah, we can show the location, but we cannot guarantee what they'll produce.
Okay, then I would like to
you don't
amend,
know, you don't ask.
Councilmember
I would
Graham.
like to amend my motion to strike the words "and conditions" and just move it to just the locations.
Second to the amendment.
I'll second it. I think it's fine. I think that as a person out of the public, a citizen said earlier, this has been talked about over and over. So if we could put something on the website that was very clear, and I'm not saying we discuss the conditions, but I think if they have this information, why they're black, and the understanding that the fire department's aware, and they have a policy agreement in place to bring in a tanker, as much of the information that we can put on there, we should. And I think the CMAQ report is great. It needs to be that excerpt out of it, but I feel like we even discussed more information tonight than what that stated. So,
Actually not.
Okay.
It covers exactly what I said.
okay, so just take that blurb and we'll make a map and have them both and have like a thing on the website, because with all of it.
Can
Okay.
I make a suggestion? I know Chief Tico would not, probably would be agreeable. Could we invite Chief to address, to present to council so that we can, he can tell us he can share with us what he knows. And then he can probably provide us guidance on how we can accomplish this. And the chief is usually very willing to address the school. I mean, I've seen him address the school board, city of Wimberley,
The chief could be here and address the council as to what their agreement is with Aqua.
Yeah.
But he cannot state what the gallons per minute is per flush bank, because that's Aqua's
You
responsibility.
wouldn't have that.
But at least give us an idea. He knows what the location with these hydrants are.
He knows the location of the hydrants. He knows also that they're not guaranteed to pump that amount. But the thing is, we know wherever hydrant is in town. The staff does too. But we can have him come in and speak about the agreement with Aqua and how that it is not, the city doesn't have any say in it, besides we know where the hydrants are.
So should the motion be amended to state, create a web page with
Well,
the
that would be an
CMAQ?
appropriate action. I'm wondering if we are going to have a conversation with the chief, that maybe we should put this on the table for a month, sort of look at the wording on it again, so we have a better idea of what we want to accomplish. I mean, with that,
I move to table this item for, to our next regular council meeting.
I second.
vote.
Actually,
so-
I have to change my words. I
Yeah.
just realized it. I can't use the word table. I move to postpone to
You
the
can
next
put it to
regular,
the next meeting, to the next regular meeting.
to the next
Next,
regular.
hold it, next, I think probably next regular meeting.
I said regular, yes.
Postpone to the next regular meeting. I second.
All right, we have a vote, please.
Are we the same motion and amendment was?
The motion.
We're gonna motion to do this, an amendment to take off as conditions.
Oh, we haven't voted on all the previous.
Right,
We didn't vote on the,
do we have to?
on the motion or the amendment to the motion to strike, and conditions. Do we need to do that before we can table?
No.
Interject.
That was my intersection.
You want to rescind your motion?
He doesn't actually have.
I don't, I'm postponing it so that we put it onto.
Right, we just had the first one, motion seconded, so I'm just simply asking, do you want to rescind that?
You're asking me if I would like to rescind my original motion.
Yes, that's right. And then.
Well, we'd have to vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
Because I can't.
Technically, the postpone interjects all of that.
It does.
Supersedes it, but it's
All
fine.
our motions stay in existence if I postpone.
It's, yeah, you're postponing what we have done so far, which is to propose an amendment
And,
to.
Come on, man.
Okay, so we're voting to postpone the item to next regular.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine, Councilmember Grummer,
aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye. What happened to Judy? Did she leave or something?
Wow. Item number 16, discussion and take appropriate action on the Woodcreek policies and procedures manual binder. Possibly take action on reviewing and updating the individual files within the binder and publishing them on the website for public access. That was submitted by both council member Hines and Grummer, and we blended those on the agenda item. I'm gonna turn it over to you.
I issue a motion to accept those as written.
I second.
Any discussion?
I'm gonna dig it out.
I have a question, Mayor, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Are there in the binder, the council binder that was given to us, there's policies and procedures, are any of them in that binder not for public view? Is there restrictions? I'm asking either the city attorney or the city manager.
What's in the binder?
Basically, every one of those policies was a resolution adopted by a previous council, even when you get down to when to open up the city hall.
Yes,
So they're all on the website.
Well, they were all by resolution.
yes, but so resolutions are not necessarily represented on our website, correct?
So what, just so I'm clear, you're saying that everything in this binder was passed by a resolution?
Basically.
Yeah, it's all you.
Okay.
You would have to know the code to look up.
Well, you can't.
Well, actually, the muni code is for ordinances, because that's the law. Resolutions are guidance. And all new resolutions is on the website where you can look at resolutions. These have never been included on it,
Okay, so they would still need to be put on there.
unless you want to change them.
Okay,
Yeah, and there's a lot of those that are so out of date
yes.
that have been also corrected by a resolution at a later date.
And that was part of my actual initial idea regarding my portion of this item. I read through them like, well, but you have them all, they've all been repealed because that's the nature of a new resolution. It repeals the previous ones. And so I was curious as why they were in the binder that you give to council.
Because if you read those resolutions, not every section of the resolution repeals the previous resolution. So you might have, and I'll go back to, I use the one about when to open City Hall and turn on the coffee maker. I think that's even in there.
Okay.
But because, yeah,
Like this one's about the financial controls only.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And then as you get in there, then I think there's a resolution about using City Hall, leasing it. There's also a resolution about, of course, the investment policy. And that's reviewed annually. But it's just that we've included every resolution in there because you have to track the changes. So it might be easier to rescind all the resolutions and set up new resolutions.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay,
Well-
thank you, that's very helpful. But also the other point I think that I put into this was the idea of making resolutions somehow public-facing documents.
If you go on our website, since we've been, how long, Linda? The resolutions, since I've been here, there is, and especially on the new Muni Code system, you just hit resolutions and it shows you the resolutions have been adopted.
True.
Including that?
Well, those are.
Yeah, so, there's like 12 of them, and it looks like everything since 2021 only.
Okay.
Something's a proclamation of Constitution Week, the Hill Country Night Sky are on there, so it's resolutions and proclamations. Yeah, so nothing predating 2021.
So if I could make a suggestion, I mean, it seems to me like, these policies and procedures apply to staff and council. And that perhaps we could put together a small task force of staff and council members to look at them, see what's still pertinent. Find a way to put them up on the website, literally under resolutions regarding policies and procedures. Submit new ones if they need to be submitted and go from there. Otherwise, we could talk this out for years.
So, so the motion, we would need to resend the original motion and issue a new one to create a task force, correct?
You would, I mean, that.
We would amend.
Amended.
Yeah, I would amend the original motion and to create a task force of staff and council to.
Okay, so let me go back.
Sure.
Can I add on something?
Absolutely.
If you type in resolutions into the search, it brings up all the way back to 2015
In the Muni Code?
on our website.
Oh, I see, okay.
So when you type it in, you can see, I'm looking at one that was 99, resolution to segregate the office of the city secretary.
Whoa, that doesn't work.
You go back, here's 116. And 16, 15.
Okay.
Clarifies city support of the Cypress Creek.
All right, so someone like to suggest that amendment?
I would like to suggest the amendment to create a task force to complete this job.
Staff and council?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Up to 2 members.
All right. Second? You second?
I will second, and, because if you look at chapter 36, which is supposed to be city policies, it's seriously, I'm trying to do this nicely, seriously deficient. Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment to include the task force.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
All right, and now vote on the motion as amended.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
All right. So, and I'd be happy to help with that task force and just get with me, volunteering if that's something you'd like to do. Number 17 is discussion on a revision of City of Woodcreek Code Ordinances, Chapter 151, to clarify what alter means in 151.03 and the ordinance and of that ordinance, and 2, provide for a deemed approved deadline for processing the permits under 151.08. Councilmember Floyd.
Yes, just a quick question. Is this not an action item as well? Just a discussion item?
Yeah, the discussion was because it was still, and there were still some work to be done on it.
Okay.
And that wasn't in the packet.
Okay.
So that's sort of what we're trying to do here,
Gotcha.
get that in the packet.
Okay, so let me kind of lead you guys through what I'm thinking here, and I guess we'll come back next time and maybe finalize this hopefully. Bear with me a second here. Well, as we talked about last time, the trouble is with the permitting process that our ordinance provides that anytime you alter a structure, you have to get a permit. And the question is, what does alter mean? And, it could mean something, in common terms, it could mean something as simple as just changing a front door. I mean, does that mean you have to get a permit because you're altering your property? Furthermore, specifically in terms of roofing projects, if you're just changing the shingles on your roof, do you need a permit for that too? And that's been confusing. I think if you have to go through the permit process for something pretty simple, it can be pretty involved in terms of the paperwork that has to be generated. And it's involved for not only the homeowner, but also for the staff to process all that. So what I was hoping to do was come up with an idea on how to clarify that. When do you need a permit and when do you not need a permit? And then maybe we can streamline that a little bit, and maybe some of the things that are having to fall into the permit process don't necessarily have to. It makes it easier on homeowners, it makes it easier on staff, and it provides some certainty to our ordinance. Another issue that we had was just sometimes it takes a long time for these permits process, no fault of the staff or anybody, but it makes it again hard on the homeowner because they're trying to schedule a contractor to come in. So the goal of what I'm working on is to do two things. One, to provide clarity as to when a building permit is actually needed, as opposed to just when you say you're doing repairs on your property. Do you really need a permit for that or not? Secondly, to set a time frame for processing of the building permits so that, if it's not done by a certain time, then it's deemed approved, unless I guess the parties mutually agree to extend, but at least put some kind of deadline and some certainty into the statute as a whole, or the ordinance. The things that working with Bud and looking what other cities did, what we've come up with is I think you have a draft in your packet, and I'm going to actually change that up. But the one thing that we solved was the processing time. That's 151.08. What Bud and I worked on is just to put a 45-day limit. If it's not approved in 45 days, it's deemed approved. So that at least you have some certainty as to how long you're going to have to wait to get approved or not. Again, I think parties could probably mutually agree to extend that, but it's not necessarily going to be in the ordinance. Now, the solution that I worked on is when you need a permit is, for just what may be considered repairs. I did a couple of things. One, I looked at the city of Wimberley. And if you look at the packet that I handed out to you guys earlier, look at what has number 1 in my handwriting at the bottom of it. That's the portion of the Wimberley residential building code that applies to this kind of thing. And so I wanted to see what Wimberley did. What Wimberley has done is they made it simple. Non-structural repairs and renovations don't need a permit. The next part is structural repairs and renovations do need a permit. That's fairly simple. So I like that. Bud and I looked at that, and I think it's a clean way to handle it, but it may need some more work. One thing to notice on residential roofing, they say if you're not interfering with the structure of the building and the roof, you don't need a permit. Basically, if you're replacing shingles, don't need a permit unless you're changing pitch, you're getting into the structure of the building. The only exception they have, for some reason, Wimberley says that you can, do your own roof and not get a permit, but if you hire a professional roofer, then you got to get a permit. I think that's backwards, and I'm going to not necessarily go along with that, but I understand the concept they have about whether or not you're getting into the structure of the building. The other thing I took a look at was the International Residential Code, and I think that specifically applies to residences, which, you know, that's primarily what we're dealing with. The IRC doesn't say anything about inspections, doesn't say anything about contractor selection, about root contractors out. The only thing it deals with is a permit process. The thing about the IRC, it's 700 pages long. It's hard for people to find, and it's really hard to pull it up because you basically have to buy it to look at it, and it's not cheap. So what I want to do is bring that language of the IRC forward and put that into our ordinance as it applies to repairs and whether or not you're getting into the structure and whether or not you need a permit. So what I came up with, you take a look at the what's marked number 3 in your package. That's my proposed rewrite of the ordinance. The section C that's in your packet, I've marked that out, but I worked on that. What we have added in is a new section C that reads, basically it takes Wimberley's position. If it's non-structural repairs, you don't need a permit. But what I did add is the IRC definition of structural changes, and what it says that those include, just so people know, including cutting away of any wall, partition, or portion thereof, or the removal or cutting of any structural beam or load-bearing support, or the removal or change of any required means of egress or rearrangement of parts of the structure affecting egress requirements. That's the definition right out of IRC. So what we did is we took Wimberley's ordinance, we put that in this new one, and then we added the definition from the International Residential Code to make sure that it's clear. D says if you do end up affecting the structure of the building, then you got to get a permit, just like Wimberley does. In terms of the roofing, I'm just saying if you don't affect the structure of the building, in other words, you're just replacing shingles, you don't need a permit. That's consistent with the IRC, and I think that's consistent with what we're trying to do. Lastly, Bud and I added, and I think Bud drafted this specifically, if there's an increase in impervious cover, if you increase the overall impervious footprint, then you got to get a permit. And that's probably required under that code anyway, but that's what we're looking at. So that's what I'm proposing, is that we beef up our ordinance so that people know whether or not they need a permit. We also have a deadline for processing. So that's what I've come up with. I'll entertain questions or thoughts.
Yes.
So in looking at this, I'm just going off my own personal experience and being the daughter of a general contractor and plumber. How are we going to address plumbing and electrical? I'm not seeing that here, and maybe it wasn't supposed to be here because it's somewhere else, but my understanding is like plumbing, electric, septic, gas, all of those things still need to have a permit process in place for public health and safety. Okay.
Okay. And I struggled with this. Oh, I'm sorry, this here. That's blowing up you. I struggle with this because IRC has a section on that as well. That's in the IRC section. It's on number 2 in your packet, but this is what it says. And this might need some work because this comes right out of the IRC, but it's bad English, frankly. It says a permit is required for the addition to, alteration of, replacement or relocation of any water supply, sewer, drainage, drain leader, gas, solid waste, vent or similar piping, electrical wiring, or mechanical or other work affecting public health and public safety. Now, we can put that in. I would like maybe some help from staff to kind of clarify how that particular section would apply to us, because I don't know what it means when it says a drain leader. I've never heard of such a thing, but.
Can I address that? So basically what is happening is, so if you decide to remodel your bathroom, but you do not change any of your plumbing, it still stays in the same location, then you don't have to have the permit. But if you decide I'm going to have the drain for my tub in the middle instead of on one end, then you have to have a permit.
Let me ask you, how does that language out of IRC, would that work for you guys?
Well, that's how we enforce it right now.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is to move that out of the IRC, which is hard to find, and just put that in our ordinance and make that, section G along the lines of what I've already done. Would you be all right?
Yeah, and basically, well, that's what we're doing anyway. When somebody calls us, we say, what are you doing? And they say, well, we're gonna move, some electrical outlets. Okay, you do. Anytime you change that kind of stuff, because then you have to, you meet at certain requirements.
Yeah.
And on the plumbing code, same thing. And that's when we say, yes, you have to have a permit.
So if we took this and added it to this here, you'd be okay with that?
I have no problem with it because we're doing it right now.
Okay, good. It just makes it clear it's in the ordinance.
That the citizen would understand it more.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want the, or other work affecting public health or public safety included?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's for safety.
Yes. You got to.
Because one of that would probably, I guess structural changes covers it, but you can't move like window height specifically, and also like if you convert your garage, it can't be considered a living space unless you do X, Y, Z. So even though you didn't change the structure of the garage and maybe you put in windows, those windows then have to meet. So it's just kind of yeah.
All right. Yes, Councilman Firmer.
I'd like to add to the discussion and maybe for consideration in the idea of, when it comes to the 15108, the processing, in my notes, because I actually thought we were doing an action today as well, I added after the 45 days, so I meant to read, if the application is denied, the applicants will be notified in writing how the application is not in compliance with the city ordinance. The building permit fee will not be refunded and the application is not approved. Now that's what's already existing. What I've added is the original building permit fee will extend to cover an additional 30 days after the application has been denied in order to allow the applicant time to come into compliance with the city ordinances for that specific application. What the concept is, but go ahead.
No, I have another question, but go ahead.
The basic concept is that you've applied to get your fence redone. And the city goes, well, you're going to put somebody else's property. You need to move that a foot. Oh, okay. Well, that's a very simple fix that I think 30 days allows that fix and go, okay, I just adjusted my permit and then so it's still standing as the original permit fee for an application. Where if it's, wow, you can't build you can't build a second story to your house, that would, you can only do a 1-story house. That would take longer than 30 days, so they would have to. Basically, I'm trying to cover those little tweaks that citizens can do on their permits that won't take that long. And just not have them reapply for a new permit and pay the new fee.
Okay. So my question, Mayor, okay. My question is, okay, it says application is received. We have some permits that we have been working on for 3 months because they do not file everything they need that's on the permit application. So basically, the way that when we issue, we say that the permit will be issued within 30 days, is what it says right now. But that's after it's completely administratively complete. Because, and it kind of addresses what you're talking about, we still continue to work with the property owner.
Under that one permit.
On a permit, we have one, we have some that are out, for 3 months because they have to provide more information to us.
So they're just extended.
So
That's during the application process.
the way that this was drafted, it requires notice of a completed application.
Right.
So in other words, under this ordinance, proposed ordinance is drafted, the onus is on the city to say, your application is incomplete. Your application is incomplete. Now, at the moment, the application is complete, then the city must provide written notice. And that is the point at which the 45-day shot clock starts.
So that goes to Brendan's point. He's saying that we want to have it administratively complete before the time runs, and you say you're addressing that by saying completed.
Right, because the 45-day shot clock starts when the city sends notice of a completed application.
right.
So if someone comes in and provides 50% of what's required, the city would then say, well,
The clock didn't start.
clock would start, so get us these things. And then, of course, if someone delays in providing those things, then that delays the shot clock.
Can you live with that language the way Bud has it in there?
Oh, I'm happy with it.
Okay.
It actually gives us 4 days.
Say again?
It gives us 4 days.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that help your?
That makes sense to me, yes.
Okay.
I want to speak to the completed application, and this is coming from having to do this. I think that one thing that's lacking here is definition of what a completed application is. Because for me as a citizen, so I think that I would suggest that we include a definition that says a completed application, and you can define it as one that includes all required information, documents, signatures, fees, or you can use a little bit more than says that contains all information, data, documentation necessary to support a decision. I think you need to define it.
Absolutely.
How would you define it then? I mean, I don't mind doing that, but
Okay.
how do you?
You can use, these are some that I researched today, and one is said, was the application, a completed application is one that contains all information, data, and documentation necessary to support a decision.
Yeah.
And in our case, we could add fee also,
Yes.
in case they forget to check.
Yes,
So I would
and
recommend-
any other information are reasonably requested by the city.
Yeah. Well, why don't we do this? I think we got guidance. Can Bud and I work to finish this up based on what we talked about today?
Yeah.
All right.
Some citizens kind of talked about the top part of this. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind, on the actual like document that's in here. It starts out with the ordinance portion. So all of this that we've just discussed is actually on the like the following supplemental document, but on the ordinance language itself, there was some concern that it was potentially vague and implies somebody could alter an entire structure or building. And so that might need some reworking as well. Because what you've done on the back end is great, but that top paragraph,
Talking about the caption?
well, right under where it says ordinance number, and then it goes in ordinance of the city, dot, 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 dot. Anyways, there were some citizen concerns about that specific language there, and I read through it and I agreed that the way it is now kind of implies that you could potentially alter an entire structure.
Yeah, we talked about that, and that's actually why it's not an action item. We didn't have that cleared up,
Okay.
and it raised some real concerns. And
Great.
said, okay, we gotta clear that up. We can't have somebody just sort of building a brand new house on the old slab without having a permit.
Right, okay.
And it could have been construed that way, so that's why.
Generally speaking, what's contained in the caption will never take precedence over what's contained in the body of the actual ordinance.
Yeah, but your average person doesn't necessarily know that, nor do they read everything, so I think that we need, as long as they're already on
We'll
it.
clean that up. Yeah.
Well, and basically also, if you think about what's in the caption itself, it's not codified.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll clean up the caption, define completed, and then add that section G that handed out. So we can put that together for the next meeting.
All right, thank you. So, and we still have, I am terribly sorry, folks. We had a full agenda and we were trying to get it streamlined and it hadn't worked. We still have a few more items to go and we'll try to get through them as quickly as we possibly can. Number 18, discuss and take appropriate action on possible change in zoning classification, including a potential zoning overlay and or lot subdivision minimum of 1 acre in the Brick Meadow neighborhood. Councilman Bremer.
Mayor, if I may, I propose sending the draft ordinance for the Brick Meadow District to planning and zoning to review and make recommendation to council.
A second.
All right, did you get the motion? What is it again? Yeah, can you read the motion back?
to send the draft ordinance to planning and zoning to review and make recommendation to city council.
Okay, so
The Brook Meadow draft.
the Brook Meadow draft ordinance that you've been working on with city attorney to B and C. So who's second? Do we have a second?
Myself, yeah.
Councilmember Hines. And you want to clarify real quickly,
Yeah.
just, okay, so the draft ordinance goes to P and Z.
They
P
make
and Z
their recommendation.
reviews,
We're asking for their recommendation back.
recommendation back. Okay.
We have a discussion.
Yeah.
This has been referred to planning and zoning.
That's what
The-
we're trying to do right now.
The overall concept has been referred to planning and zoning along with plats and plans and things. What we're saying is now there's an actual ordinance
Okay.
drafted that they have not seen. They need to be able to approve the ordinance or not. Bring it back to council. With council's approval, then we can go into the process of public hearings and the rest of the, right? Am I
Well,
mistaken
one
that?
thing I want to make sure is that they are reviewing the draft ordinance and they're making recommendations to the draft.
Right, right.
Because you said approved, so.
I'm sorry.
So this is, okay.
So,
this
and
will
then
be
they'll
sent
make
to
the rec-
Planning and zoning for them to review and present a recommendation to council.
to council for the final draft of the ordinance. And then that's when they will start the public hearing process of the adoption of the ordinance.
Okay, now I get it.
Yeah, and thank you for that timeline that we sent out. That was cool.
When is PBZ meeting again?
Right now, we've been discussing it next week.
Okay, so it's moving.
If I may. I also wanted it to be, we were going to have 2 public hearings and also the entire district that's being proposed for Brook Meadow and the 200 surrounding feet of that area are going to have written notices mailed to them directly, correct?
Correct.
And so those people can also come speak during public hearings as well as, do they reply by writing as well, or is it just?
Yes, they can make reply
Written
in writing, yes.
So basically, the people most affected by this proposed idea will have their say
Correct.
Twice.
twice.
In public hearings and in writing.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. We're prepared to vote on sending the draft ordinance.
Oh, actually, if I may, I do have another question to the city attorney. Thank you, city attorney, for drafting this with me. Is there anything in the language specifically in this draft ordinance that you have created that is retroactive? That it affects retroactively?
What do you mean by retroactive?
Ex post facto law?
Chris, let's not do
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the ordinances happen in the way of the moment it's passed, it doesn't touch things in the past, correct?
Chris, I don't think we want to get into that in public.
Okay.
Just a basic concept of ordinances.
I don't know how I can answer that without touching on something that's not on the agenda. And that's my concern.
Okay.
But generally speaking, an ordinance takes effect when it is passed.
Thank you.
All right. Let's vote, please.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. We move on to 19, discussion and take action on outlining the permit process on the city website to enhance customer service and mitigate resident expectations. Councilmember Hines.
I move to accept as it's written.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pulley. And,
So my goal with this one is essentially to consider we create a FAQ section essentially that like, what I've noticed in the complaints I have received from citizens specifically while I was campaigning, many people talked about not really understanding the permit process or being caught off guard by the fact that we actually send everything out to ACS. And then my own experience with the city was exceptional. Linda's been great. But even I, in looking, you know, I'm somebody who really reads stuff, was not clear that my plans would be sent out and there would be that time frame. So my goal with this was just to kind of create a little blurb that, you know, when you apply for a permit, if, you know, going back to Pulley's recommendations, if it does require this permit, that, you know, you need to expect first that your entire application has to be completed. These are what you need. And then from there, once that, you know, outline that timeline again in a very visible spot. And then from there, explain that it goes to ATS and that they will then maybe make recommendations that you then also have to alter your plans. So I think that timeline gets really confusing for people and they line up their contractors expecting a quick permit process because they see how small City Hall is or whatever. And I think it's creating unfair expectations on our staff and then hard feelings with citizens because they don't understand that. And so I just want to.
And this goes hand in glove with Councilmember Pulley's alter changes. So it works really well together. It's something that staff and I talked about the first time we sat down together after I was elected. Is, you know, can we put something on the website, on that permit page that sort of says, here's what you can expect. And so it's been on our mind. So it's a timely motion. And
I agree. I think a good place to put this, you know, one of the things that I like is when you get a form that has an instructions page.
Yeah.
You have a form and then top of the form says, and so already we have a section that is forms. So what you're suggesting, that make a cover, make an instructions. In fact, you have 3 different permits, so it would cover all permits. And with the changes that we're making, I think that would help.
Yeah, even if it said like read first and they had to click through it. So every single time you're kind of hitting the face with that reminder.
It's not like, I mean, I know that.
I do think it's something I'd like to vote on as quickly as we can, but it is something that, considering that we're going to be taking up Councilmember Pulley's ordinance, probably the next meeting, that, you know, we can certainly be talking about this, but I think it's probably premature to have to start doing the website.
Okay.
You know, we'll just need to see how that all, that's going to be part of the instruction. Wouldn't you think, that we want to add in there? So
I think we
can start on sort of the plans, and then flesh out the actual text that would be going up there.
So we would vote to authorize the process, but understanding that it would follow all of this information.
Right.
Okay.
Well, let me ask this, Deborah, is this something you can do? I mean, can you?
If I get the back end of that website, I could do all kinds of things, but I don't have access to that yet.
Okay. I mean, something that you can prepare that just upload it to the website or?
Yeah, you know, I have hesitated to prepare any documents because I see kind of the process of that. So I've always kind of like left it to the attorney because it looks like, you know, it goes to him anyway, but maybe that's not fair to put that much work on him. So, and I can easily make that document or start that.
Okay. That may be helpful to at least block it out.
Well, my guess is that the website is pretty templated, and so we have to understand how the widgets work and then go from there. But I mean, I'm really familiar with how that's done, so we can help staff without necessarily getting in and rearranging the website ourselves.
No, I mean, I think most of that would still need council approval, but, you know, it's all built in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, can we vote on this one?
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
All right.
Thank you. Number 20, discuss and take appropriate action establishing a City of Woodcreek Ordinance Review Committee subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act. Councilmember Grimmer, your motion.
I move as written, to accept as written.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to create the ordinance review committee subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act. City Manager, we're going to add accepting applications.
Well, we just assumed you were going, it would be added, but we also made the comment that we're assuming that you're going to accept applications if you went ahead and did it. But it's the motion to concur with what was done with the other motion, should say.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So do we need to amend it?
Yes,
Or, okay,
please.
yeah, it was in my notes to recommend an amendment to begin accepting applications.
I second.
All right, so we vote on the amendment, which is to begin accepting applications for membership in the ordinance review committee.
Are we going, question, are we going to, the ordinance review committee that has the sections that we have there, the popular name, purpose, creation, and composition?
The question,
Well, there are some things in there like aldermen, appointment by aldermen, and I just, for example, the process that we currently use to select committee members is not this process. If there's like an alderman, where a council member can remove, can appoint, say this will be my person to appoint. I think that's not, I mean, it needs to be reviewed, it needs to be put into, so maybe the city attorney can speak to this.
This was a collaborative effort with Chris and myself, although his brainchild. And the idea was to take what Chris is trying to do and put it into a workable form. Generally, it was when he got it over to me. The term alderman, I prefer to use that as much as possible because it's what's stated under Chapter 22 of the Local Government Code. The appointment and removal process is certainly different than what's been done before, but the idea is to try and give every council member a specific voice in making an appointment subject to approval so that the committee is comprised of individuals that represent, I wouldn't say not just necessarily the collective consensus of the council, but individual members wanting to have particular voices on the committee.
Okay, I mean, I just read the whole thing and I do think that it needs to be worked.
Understood.
So that I'm okay with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I was just kind of echo what he was saying, but also it's common practice specifically in cities that are divided in districts. So even if they're a small city, frequently even council members will be voted on by a district. And so there is like precedence for this process. And I think that our code only specifies any kind of procedure for P&Z. I have never seen anything for parks, but I feel like this process could be, something we consider moving forward for other, like the Platinum Panel, for example. If we divided the city into districts, like kind of like the comprehensive plan, maybe even different ones, and then appointed, to the Platinum Panel from that could be really effective.
The other question I have is on 30.73, the terms of each member. This I would like you to look at it. Shall be concurrent with the alderman or council member who appointed each member and will expire upon the appointing council member's term. For example, let's say we do this now, I appoint Joe Smith, and I'm gone in December. So Joe Smith's gone?
Yeah, that was, I think that was what Chris was wanting to see, is to make this committee a committee that is reflective of all of the voices on the council. So, if someone comes on the council, let's just say you're not on the council at a certain point in the future. You have a particular individual that you think will provide very beneficial input to this committee. So you appoint them to the committee and the council approves them. But then someone who has some different ideas than you do, has a particular individual they think will really do a good job with the committee. The idea is when someone is serving on the council, that they would generally get to make an appointment. And obviously, if someone was really far out of bounds, they could not be confirmed, but they could be removed. So gives the opportunity for specific appointments.
To kind of answer your question, follow up on, basically, I was feeling that the committees can reflect these voters' elections to council in ways that when we have these kind of staggered terms, because council is rotating every 2 years. Well, every 1 year, but everyone has a 2-year terms. And so when the committees are connected to a specific council member, it's constantly possibly shifting. But of course, so my term will be up in a year. If whoever sits in my position again would have the ability to bring someone to the committee. Now, they could choose the same person that I chose. That's their discretion. And I think it's just that kind of fluidity, I guess, and representing what the citizens have voted.
I like that idea. Sorry to speak of a turn.
It's just an issue, one of my concerns with the issue of continuity. And to be honest with you, maybe it's my understanding from, I feel that this is a working group. They need to develop a product. They need to, and I would say, the first thing I would like them to see is to look at the entire code and look for the streamlining, consistency, and everything.
Yeah.
So this is, my concern is you have a good working group and things are moving along and they're getting some things, and that council member leaves.
Yeah,
And
and then we have.
So that's the only thing that, you know.
Yeah, but if we do have an election, then they could be put back on. And I do agree that continuity is important, especially for big projects. But we can keep choosing the really good people over and over again.
One of the things I was thinking about this too is that, anytime you start something like this up that's tied to, elected officials, the first year is going to be weird. And I know that when we've done this with other organizations, it's just like, okay, well, your first term is, 18 months, to get started, right? So to, get it passed. So even if the council member were, not elected, then, but that doesn't work here, but it is, we have to understand that if we put this into place, there is the chance that, one or more of the appointed committee members would go away because their patron was defeated or decided not to run again, but there could be, recommendations. I mean, you're probably gonna take these, name these candidates from a list of applications submitted, so, and we're a small city. So, we're not going to be, inundated with candidates. So it will be who this, I think, sometimes to
Just think, like I said, you two are gonna work on this, so.
Actually, to be clear, I guess, if we have the ordinance being presented, and that's what we're voting on.
Right.
So if you wish to make amendments to the ordinance, now's the time to do it.
This is not a draft, is what he's saying. So,
It's not a draft?
no, it's the final one, that's what we're that's the
Right.
motion on the table, is to vote this into action. So if you would like to have it amended, or if you have
Well, I
a
understood
specific.
that. The city attorney just said
There could be some work to correct, clarify.
If there's language that you want to amend, I can pull it up and we can see if we can work through some of it. I mean, I would imagine that Chris is pretty happy with it, so, but I mean, certainly, if there's some problems with it, we can certainly talk.
I have some concerns. Like I said, this is the first time. I would like, maybe I misunderstood. I thought this is first reading or second. I just have some concerns.
We can fix the typos.
But if this is a final, you can go for a vote. I can just.
A lot of them.
Oh, really? Wow.
That's section, let's see, 3073 C, no, D. Members of the ordinance review committee may be removed from the ordinance review committee by a simple majority vote of the aldermen. Should it be men?
Got it.
And a meeting of the alderman for such vote has been properly noticed.
Got it.
Yeah, so there's some things in there.
Yeah.
That need to be cleaned up. And,
So we could, in theory, pass it with acknowledging that typos would be cleaned up like we did with,
Draft on non-substantive changes.
Right.
with the resolution.
and I would suggest, change that to council member
yeah,
instead of alderman, even though it's anonymous.
I don't disagree with that, but alderman is technically the legal term.
It is, but with everything we have in
Yeah, we're
the
trying to being clear to the citizens too,
Yeah,
and they don't think of us as all.
Okay,
So can we take that vote then with?
well, we need to add that,
typos
yeah, there's some typos too, I think.
being corrected and,
the amendment from alderman. Would you consider a friendly amendment to change alderman to council member?
Robert Rules doesn't have a friendly amendment, they have an amendment.
Would you accept an amendment?
It's not for me to accept.
I would like to amend it to change alderman to council member.
all right, we have a motion to amend,
I second.
second by Councilmember Bremer.
And
We vote on that now.
Yeah, can we vote on that? Can we
I know
vote?
there are some typos, so I think that, I
Can
think
we-
that in the friendly amendment also, that there be done a final reading and then we'll think if they check for.
We have
So we
one amendment on the table first.
Yes, we have the amendment to change alderman to council
The
man
council
and then
member.
council member.
Do you want to do that one before
Yes,
you do
please.
that?
What other one?
The other amendment was to begin accepting applications.
We still know? Jeez.
Yeah, let's just
That
vote
was-
on that first.
Who seconded that, Linda?
That was you.
Oh, well, there I am.
Yeah, let's, I'm sorry, you're right, let's vote on the amendment to accept applications.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun.
Okay, would you please restate the motion with the amendments?
The amendment was, the motion was to accept the ordinance as written. The amendment was to begin accepting applications,
So the motion was to do the review.
to accept the action establishing a City of Woodcreek Ordinance Review Committee subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, that's the original motion, and then we amended it to include and begin taking applications for membership.
But what I'm talking about is the corrections that need to be made in the document.
Right, we're not there yet. We have to vote on
Yeah.
this amendment first,
Well, so we're voting on this amendment first.
to add it to the
All right.
motion.
We're voting on the simple one.
Okay.
Yeah, so the amendment is to accept applications.
Accept applications.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Bremer,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Foley,
Aye.
Thank you. So now we will vote on the second amendment, then replacing alderman with council member.
and with typos.
I can add that. to the amendment.
I thought you said
So I would like to rescind my amendment on Alderman, and its place, I will make the amendment to change Alderman to council members, and that the final document will be reviewed for topographical errors that do not and have.
That do not make substantive changes.
Yeah.
I second.
that. Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hine,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
All right. Do I really have to do number 21?
we haven't voted on tonight.
All right, vote on the, oh, that's right, we've got to vote on the entire amendment. All right. It's a little late. All right, let's vote on the entire amendment, please.
Okay, so the whole amendment, the original amendment.
The
as
amended
amended.
motion. The motion to create the committee, accept applications, change alderman to council member, and other typographical corrections that are not necessary.
Yes.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember LeBrun,
Aye.
I mean, Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun, I'm sorry. Councilmember Pulley,
As long as you give me.
why don't you look at me?
Don't get her, Vicky.
All right. All right, so, number 21, discuss and take appropriate action on appointing a deputy city secretary and authorizing staff to advertise for the position of city secretary. I need someone to push that motion for me.
So moved.
Councilmember Pulley,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hines. I'd like to, ask that, city manager Brenton Lewis serve as deputy secretary. My second. Is that a correct?
Council instructs or creates that. So it's an officer position that would be filled on an interim basis by your appointment. So what we've got here are two separate agenda items. Brent was willing to take on that additional officer role in addition to the one that he already has. Then you can handle it, one, that way by appointing, having council confirm. Two, I think you could probably just instruct him to fill that role anyway for the time being. And then we're going to need a separate agenda or a separate motion to put the job out.
Okay, so we want to just break that motion into two.
Right, so I guess the first question is, if Brenton's willing to do it, then you make that point. And
So
then,
we've already talked about
Yeah, I mean, we're
it. Because
talking
we
about
didn't
the
want to
one
mix
that,
up the court clerk with the secretary's position because we want to keep them separate.
right, so you simply need to appoint Brenton as the interim city secretary effective upon Linda's resignation, to only serve in that role until a permanent secretary is appointed. No, they're still in the room.
They're still in the room, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Or what?
Oh, I thought you were going to the restroom.
okay.
Well, it's also, we're going to be thing with.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so do we need to, I mean, is the appointment enough or do you want to take it as a nomination and vote on the nomination?
If you want to handle it that way, then you vote.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to y'all. If y'all want to vote, we've already talked about it. It's like this, I think the smartest thing to do, but if we want to put it to a council vote, I'm going to do that.
Unless there's someone else who's else, I would like to keep it a seamless transition in the meantime.
That
I
was
think it's
my
smart.
thought on the appointment. So if you would accept that appointment, I'd like to make that. Mr. Lewis, thank you very much.
Sure.
And then the second part of the motion is to begin advertising for the position of city secretary.
Sorry, do we need a second then?
Yeah.
It's been taken, we just need to vote on it.
Like, wait, No, I got it. Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun. Councilmember. I got a head nod, I'm sorry. Councilmember Grummer.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Foley.
Aye.
All right. Item number 22, discuss and take appropriate action on the mayor establishing a platinum panel and guidelines regarding review and recommendation on street repair, reconstruction, maintenance, drainage, alternate modes of transportation, traffic calming options, possible funding mechanisms, and accepting applications for same. That was my request. I can't really make a motion. Have someone to put that one forward, please.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Foley, seconded by Councilmember Hines. And this is the blue ribbon committee that was suggested by the engineers and the bond council, and talking about how to make this happen. It's the thing that, it's the thing to do. I just want to get that on the agenda and get it.
All right.
Mayor, if I may?
Mm-hmm.
I have some questions. Now, is this panel answerable to you? Is this a mayor's committee?
They would report to council. They would report up to council.
So this is a council, city-created committee?
Right, so we'll accept applications like we do other groups and go through the nomination process like we do other groups, and the members will be voted in.
Okay, I would like to amend, I don't see a draft. Is there a better draft for this?
Mayor, can I interject
Please do.
this? So basically, we were sitting in the, working on the agenda at 4 o'clock. And there had never been anything submitted about the platinum panel. So the mayor and I discussed it to begin the process, at least to have him start to set up guidelines. It could be adopted by ordinance later.
Okay.
But this is just get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to verify.
That was the part about establishing a platinum panel and guidelines regarding.
I would like to make an amendment to the existing language to include, subject to the Opens Meeting Act, this panel.
Would it work if we just took the ordinance review committee ordinance and plugged in a different set of duties? In other words, it would be the same template for creation, for appointment, removal, etc. But all we would do is take out the duty section, and then you can get me some language on what you want the duties to be, stick it in there, and we'll have that.
That what I would suggest is to do that for the next special meeting.
Yes.
And then we can go ahead and start the process of taking applications, but go ahead.
That's where I was going. That's exactly right.
I was gonna suggest that, so I think we should do that, because I think the ordinance review, that document is awesome, that process of appointment, and it going with, I love what you said about it aligning with the way the voters are moving. I think that's great, and that was my suggestion.
So what we would be voting on is the concept of the platinum panel and beginning to accept applications, and then we would craft a version of the selection process and everything based on the ordinance review committee, and then work on guidelines of what this group is supposed to be doing, right?
And I do want to also, if I may, mention you have, including at least one council member, and I'm going to have to cite the TML regarding dual office holding incompatibility, that council is considered incompatible and is prohibited on being a member of a committee in which it appoints members.
Okay. But can they not also serve as an ex officio member?
Mm-hmm.
The wording is self-appointment incompatible prohibits a member of the governing body from being appointed to a position over which the governing body has appointment authority.
Do we have to solve this right now, though?
No, I'm just saying that once we just consider this in the ordinance. Thank you.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Makes sense, that's fine. So let's vote on the motion.
Okay, so the motion is as written.
The motion is as written, with the caveat that, we're going to craft it to match up with the ordinance review.
And then applications can begin being accepted.
So they don't have their guiding documents yet, but if we vote on this and say yes, we can start the process. Right, yes,
Right.
great.
That was our thought.
Y'all ready? Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
I,
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
All right.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, last item on the regular agenda, discussion, edit, and take appropriate action on draft 1 of the informal road funding survey.
I would like to issue the motion as it's written, but I'd also want to consider, are we tired? This is a long document. I'm ready to go, but I'm also willing to postpone.
We can postpone to the special meeting.
I would like to postpone 23 to the special meeting. Then
I second.
Motion to postpone, seconded.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun.
I,
All right, great, thank you. And so speaking of special meetings, and looking at the clock, it is 9:38. And as full as this agenda is, it did not include all the agenda items that were submitted by council, and we've already put a couple more things on the next agenda. We are going to keep having city council meetings on a regular basis until we get this stuff done, and maybe forever. There's just a lot going on in our little town, and we need to solve some things. So I'm proposing that, at least for the foreseeable future, that we meet pretty much, twice a month. Proposing the next special meeting of the council would be on the 26th of January.
But no action. We will poll the council.
Right. I mean, we'll pull a council and make sure that everybody's available. Right? We're not gonna set it, you can't be here. And then, of course, the next regular meeting of the council is set by ordinance. So,
Wednesday, January 26th.
Possibly.
Possible.
Yeah, he's gonna email you.
so I'm calling a special meeting of city council for Wednesday the 26th, subject to availability of council and ability to get a quorum, because it will be a special meeting, so quorum will change. And the final item on the agenda, city manager Lewis with Waste Connections collection rate adjustment.
Yes, basically you just have their documents showing that the adjustment on their fees will be 6% for this year. They did not have a rate adjustment last year. We did include in the packet also their history since 2018. And this is just based on the Houston CPI as part of their franchise agreement. So there's no action required. It's not on the agenda, but I will mention as a service to the citizens that the brush pickup will be January 31st. It went out today, and it's still the same guidelines as what we had last year, 5 by 5 by 5, and no limbs bigger than 5 inches in diameter.
I have a question on this. This is for This, that 5934, it includes the recycle?
Yes,
Okay, because it keeps saying garbage cans, so
right, and they've combined the two together.
I want to make sure. And the brush.
All right, there's no further business. I want to motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you all very much. No, it's been a grueling. Well, I can't run.
Yeah, it's better. That's what I was thinking.
Hopefully
It will. Yeah.